Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Inside Movies Galore. I'm your host, David Streggy, and today I have another review for you from a film that came out in the year that I was born, which is 1984, which was directed by Wolfgang Peterson, and it is called The Neverending Story. The film was filmed in Germany with the production companies of Constantine Film, Bavaria Studios, Westdeutscher Rundfunk, WDR, Warner Brothers, producer sales organization, Bavaria Film in general, and Dieter Geisler Film Production. And it's kind of a story within a story. We have Barrett Oliver playing a young boy who has evidently had his mother recently pass, and Gerald McCraney plays Bastian's father, which Bastian is the character that Barrett Oliver does play. And Gerald McCraney, if you don't know anything about him, he actually used to play in Simon and Simon as like kind of a detective, kind of a private detective kind of a show in the 70s, and he became well known in there. And in this film, and I've actually got this film on a double feature set at the moment. There's a cover of the film if you wanted to see a little bit of the cover. But in any case, it tells the story of Bastian, as he apparently is bullied by several kids and ends up running into a local used bookshop run by Carl Coriander. And he tells him about this book that evidently Bastian notices on his desk, and he tells him, "No, that book isn't for you, because you know." Have you ever wanted to be Captain Nemo or you know, those kind of stories? And he warns him against taking the book, but then he gets a phone call, and Bastian ends up borrowing the book, giving Coriander an IOU for it later, and taking it to his school. And when he gets to class, he realizes he's already too late, so he ends up taking the book up to an old part of the school's attic and begins reading the story that he eventually becomes involved with. And in a sense, the whole movie is about how children and people alike are losing their imagination. And that's what Fantasia, the world, is all about. It's made up of people's dreams and hopes and fantasies and things of that nature. And so Bastian begins to read a story about three characters that end up meeting in a forest, all coming from different lands. We have Deep Roy playing Teeny Weeny, who rides a racing snail. We have the Night Hob, played by Thilo Bruckner, who rides a flying bat. And we also have Rockbiter, who was played by Alan Oppenheimer, who also plays Valkor and Gamork and the narrator of the story. So evidently they tell of evidently in their well, actually it's more told kind of from Rockbiter's point of view, because he's rolling in on this scooter made of rocks, and he sits down and asks to be invited to their campfire, the Night Hobbs and Teeny Weenies, and he tells evidently of his homeland, and evidently that this thing called the Nothing, which is destroying his land. And so the Night Hob and Teeny Weeny also confirm that from their land there is this Nothing destroying their land. So they have come in search of help from the childlike Empress, who lives in a tower in the center of Fantasia. And so when they arrive at this tower, they look down and they see this procession going on, and apparently many people from all over Fantasia are gathered here, and they are apparently waiting for the arrival of a warrior to go on a quest with the oracle, the necklace that the childlike Empress will give to protect this warrior, to go on a quest to kind of himself, but also more of a journey to involve Bastion in on the story to later on. Now, I personally always enjoy fantasy films. This is, in a sense, a fantasy film. You have creatures like Morla, which is a mound mountain that he goes and asks where he can find help to go up against and try to find a problem to figure out how to get rid of this Nothing. At the same time of his journey, a creature in the shape of a wolf that works for this thing that is called the Nothing, which evidently a thing is something, but it's nothing. So evidently, Gamork is the name of this creature, and it starts its journey on trying to find Atreyu and ultimately kill him. Now, from Morla, he learns that he has to find this seventh oracle that is evidently 600,000 miles away. So he ends up going through. He's got this horse as well that you really feel bad for, especially when they go through the swamps of sadness. And everyone who's ever watched this film, at the exact moment when Atreyu ends up having to stop in the swamp, and his horse starts sinking. That moment is very sad. I mean, you don't get to see exactly what happens to the horse. In fact, there was a rumor online that evidently the horse had actually died, or whatnot. But in fact, the horse, after the production was done, the horse was actually given to Bastion, but because of transportation fees and all that, he couldn't take the horse with him. But the horse did not, in fact, die on the set. But that ahead of time. Spoilers. So ultimately, he gets saved by this um, flying, scaly-looking creature called Falcor, which he is very personable, very likable, and he's a luck dragon. Um, in fact, um, evidently, Falcor is actually a 40-foot long motorized creature with 6,000 plastic scales and pink feather fur. His head is 3 feet tall and long and has a long tongue in his mouth. The thing that I like about Falcor is that even his eyes move, and it makes him more lifelike. I don't think that this was ever replicated. I don't think he even shows up in the second feature. No. But ultimately, this ended up being the most expensive film ever produced in Germany at the time it was made. But it was also the most it was the most seen film in Germany at the time. What I didn't know about this film is that originally this film was written by a German author by the name of Michael Ende. And he decided he was unhappy with the film and its version of the story for him. So much so that he refused to have his name placed in the opening credits of this film. And as you see, a small credit appears at the end of the film with his name. He also asked if the movie title would be changed or canceled. After the studio declined both options, he actually filed a lawsuit and ultimately lost. Which is kind of surprising, because this has become kind of like a cult classic. I mean, the character of Atreyu is very human, and he plays him so much that even the watcher it comes along in his journey. There is even a moment where the childlike empress does, in fact, turn and say, "He was with you when you lost your horse. He was with you when you went along to the seventh oracle, and just like he was with you, there are people that are following Bastion, following this human boy along with." So I like that the fact that this film involves the audience and whatnot. I enjoyed the characters of Engelbrook and his wife, especially when she repeats what he says, and he apparently appears to be so old. Where Engelbrook was actually in a couple of movies that I know as well. One of them being Dragon something, or Dragon. I know it was called Dragon something. In any case, but I enjoyed all of the characters brought to you to a sense of what the worlds were like. I wish I could have seen more adventures with this film. The character development was spot on. To imagine that many of these creatures and characters were actually animatronic instead of like marionettes was astounding, especially when you know, these creatures looked so lifelike and so real. So, I mean, Another thing that I didn't know about this film is that Noah Hathaway, the actor of Betrayal, was actually hurt twice during the making of this movie. Evidently, while learning to ride his horse, the horse threw him off and stepped on him. And while shooting the drowning sequence in the swamp of sadness, his leg got caught on the elevator and he was pulled under the water. So that was the second time. He was unconscious by the time he was brought to the surface. So there were some setbacks in this film, and it almost probably didn't get made because of some of the things that went on behind the scenes. But what was brought to the screen, and in the original, in the German version, the song of Lamal that Lamal sang, the Neverending Story theme is actually not in there. It is actually the composer. There's music that's in there. So I totally enjoy this movie every time I see it, and it is one of my favorite films from the 80s. Because I used to read a lot, I have a lot. I have a lot in common with the young boy. I used to be bullied a lot myself. So I could see eventually finding a book and being able to be part of it in the end. I've always, I mean, who wouldn't want to be Captain Nemo or Jason and the Argonauts or Hercules? Who wouldn't want to be some of these imaginative characters that were created in novels of days gone by? I mean, this movie, there's a lot of wonder and imagination involved behind it, as well as the story that was involved. And the other thing is that this was only half of the book. I mean, there was more to the story, and that's what the second adaptation or the second film was actually based slightly loosed on, but I can get to that later. Hopefully you enjoyed my description of this film. Like and subscribe to my page if you have not. Definitely check out the movie in your own right. If you have seen the film, let me know down in your comments what you think of the movie, and definitely keep an eye out for more cool reviews that I'll be coming out with. Thank you for listening. Have a great day, evening, or morning, wherever you are. Thank you so much ahead of time for listening.